This week on Crunch Week, why Combinator solves big problems, Ballmer leaves Microsoft's board, and Aereo loses again. Hello and welcome to Crunch Week. My name is Alex.
I'm Kyle.
And I'm Kat.
And Kat, you are one more week with us, is that correct?
One more, yeah.
That's it. So it's been fast.
It really has. I can't believe it's, 10 weeks goes a lot faster than you would think.
You picked the best weeks when it was all foggy and rainy. It's been fantastic. that was brilliant of you. But it's been a big week in technology, I feel, even for an August week. And why Combinator had its demo day down south.
Yeah, no, so we went to that earlier this week, and there was a lot of cool companies. More than 80 companies presented, a couple of them off the record.
Right.
But among that batch, there was quite a few hard tech companies. These are companies that are doing fusion, nuclear fission, quantum computers, different biotech things for like discovering cancer and for a vaccine for HIV and AIDS.
And this is a different kind of bent for Y Combinator companies, which are, Dropbox and so forth, usually.
Right, no, and that was the thing where that was our big takeaway from the demo day was that, this seems like a new trend for them. And it was like comparing that to like Airbnb or Dropbox, this is the first batch of startups that Y Combinator's done with Sam Altman as the new president.
Yes.
And his argument is that this isn't actually that big of a change. Y Combinator tries to go for companies that will get big, and these are plans that are companies that have a certain kind of culture and a certain kind of strategy for capturing a market, and getting to scale while solving vision.
But you contend this is a change, right? This is not the same sort of thing. It does feel different to you, a material shift.
Yes, I think that, and calling that out isn't it's not a popular opinion in Silicon Valley.
You're not very popular right now in Silicon Valley at all.
Yeah, I got called out a little bit on Twitter by a couple VCs, and that's because their argument is that it's only with hindsight that we say like, oh, these aren't big companies, but if you look at like Mark Andreessen will say that, oh, Facebook started out as an app for college students to see like what each other are up to, but
and
then,
it's still that.
Well, yes, but with 1 billion users, you could say it's like a communication layer and like a way for people to keep in check with like how their families are going and all kinds of like.
Sure.
Telephone book meets family photo albums meets
Fair,
chat
but I mean
apps.
Fusion versus another app. I mean there's a difference there that I think is notable, and I think you were correct in this. I mean, yes, things become big, they become important. Dropbox is an amazing company, everyone likes it. Air may be the same thing. Facebook's fantastic, not a YC company, of course. But I think going after fusion and biotech is a turn, and a good one. I don't think this is a bad thing.
Yeah, no,
I think it's great.
And that's the thing. Well, I totally agree with what you're saying. Yeah, no, that's what I wrote in the piece. Just trying to play devil's advocate for the arguments against me really quickly. But no, I think you're right. And what's also interesting is that from an investment standpoint, Y Combinator gives it has a lot of weight behind it. So when they invest in companies like that, I feel like it convinces other people that maybe they should be looking for those opportunities too. And what's also interesting is like Helion, nuclear fusion. If they actually can get a product to market, is there any chance that they don't become like a mega unicorn? Right. They will be $100 billion company if they come to market.
Kat, you've met with a lot of the YC class over the last couple of weeks. Do you feel that they are just more hard science in general, or do you still see a lot of software companies in the group?
I'm still seeing a lot of software companies as well. I mean, most of the companies I interviewed, it was kind of a mix. I did one on like a service that helps hotels with a problem called walking, which is when they have to book you at another hotel when they reach capacity. One that helps people charge their phones, an app service called Doblet, that's kind of phone charging on the go.
How do you spell Doblet?
Like Doblet.
Oh my god.
What's interesting is that how many of these startups are like logistics software in the same vein as Uber, where it's like creating a marketplace and logistics for connecting people via that marketplace. So like some of them are kind of silly, like honestly, like I don't think that I will ever use Uber for valet service.
Yeah. Nope.
But I'm personally not a customer for Uber for security guards, even though like some medium-sized businesses could be sure.
True.
But like I think it's interesting that even that is like taking something that like individually doesn't seem like that big of a scale thing and trying to apply something that does scale rapidly. So even that, like they are thinking in terms of things that go big.
Well, that's always been the YC thing.
Yeah.
They invest in growth. But turning our direction a little bit to a different software company, Ballmer this week stepped down from Microsoft's board, kind of marking the end of an era and the end of 34 years of the company for him. It was not unexpected news, but certainly like we didn't know when it was going to happen. And he stepped down effective immediately. So it was kind of a seismic change.
it's kind of, I think, like a reflection of, like, on the outside, they definitely Microsoft tries to give the PR angle of, like, everything's cool here, this transition went well, like, don't worry about it, guys. But I feel like the fact that, like, they had to do it, like, you know, I'm retiring or, like, leaving the board effective immediately, it's clear that, like, they're kind of cutting ties to that past a little bit.
Well, I mean, he bought the Clippers, right, for $2 billion from that old, vile, racist kickbag. And then he basically just left after that. I mean, I wonder if he was like, now that I have this next path set for me, I'm just going to walk away. Because I don't think he was maybe that active on the board after he left. I mean, what internal power would he have after relinquishing the CEO role and still being on the board? You know, it was an 11-person board, now it's 10. So he is the largest individual shareholder.
Well, that and, you know, Ballmer was the one pushing devices and services, and now they're productivity and platforms, and those are just kind of two conflicting views.
Or is it mobile first, cloud first? There's been a lot of verbiage recently. Satya's been on this thought leader kick for a while.
Here's 2 words to describe our strategy, and then 4,000 words about what that means.
Do you guys recall Steven Sinofsky? He was the guy behind Windows 8 and Surface originally.
Yeah.
He would pen these massive, epic blog posts that were like 10 and 20,000 words long, and then no one would actually read them because they were so long.
Well, no, I love when he does that for, like, here's how my Comcast experience was, a personal narrative.
Yeah. Well, he's now at Andreessen, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. He's also at HBS, which is really cool. I like him. He's a very, very sharp guy when you meet him.
But anyway, back to Ballmer.
Right.
Okay, so I think that this is great for him. I'm really excited. He looks like he is so pumped to be involved as, you know, the owner of a basketball team.
Do we have any evidence that he's happy, perhaps?
I mean, I didn't see him not smiling at that intro event where he was, like, shaking hands with a bunch of people, like, high-fiving people in the crowd. Like, he looked pumped. And also, like, he was so, like, in love with Microsoft as a company. To see him, like, I couldn't see him leaving to be like, now be an executive at Oracle.
No.
I think he had to do something like this where it was like, you know, it's going to be a huge investment, it's going to be a huge project for him, but it's not, like, competing with the Microsoft that he loves.
I mean, why would he do that? He owns like $20 billion in Microsoft stock. That would be the stupidest thing you could do. But there's a video of him running into the stadium just high-fiving people, and it's full-on Ballmer. He's just screaming and just, yeah! And then the best part was, in the sports community, they said, like, who the hell is this guy? Why is he still screaming? Have you seen this?
I did, yes.
Yeah, wasn't it just the best thing online?
It was really fun to watch.
So, should Steve Ballmer become the next heavy metal frontman from Metallica? He's got the enthusiasm, the dad genes, you know? But this was also a tough week for a different company. Aereo lost another case.
Who did?
Aereo.
Who?
Aereo? Product Hunt? Aereo? You know, they're the same thing. Equally important. All right, Cat, walk us through this.
Yeah, so Aereo obviously has been trying to figure out what its next move can be after it was deemed illegal by the Supreme Court earlier this summer. So one of its kind of what I would say 11th hour attempts was basically trying to say, actually now we're a cable provider, which is the total opposite of what the company had been arguing all along leading up to the Supreme Court ruling. So it tried to get an appeals court to rehear its case under this idea that it was now a cable company. And the broadcast companies opposed that, wrote a letter kind of countering that, saying, here are all the times you've said that you're not a cable company. You can't argue this. So, and then yesterday we saw the judge, reject this appeal. So
Did the ruling surprise you?
Not really. I mean, it's after the amount of times we heard for years, Aereo saying we're not a cable provider, for them to turn that around based on the Supreme Court ruling, I think it was kind of a long shot. But, you know, it just kind of shows how they're really trying to find any option they can still.
So if it walks like a duck and quacks like a duck, it's actually a cable company. I got it. That makes perfect sense. So what's next for them? Do they have any more recourse?
They have a couple options left. They can still appeal this with a district court now, so that this fight itself isn't over. And then they have a couple other options they've been pursuing. So this doesn't have a lot of immediate effects for Aereo because they did end their cable services before the court issued any sort of injunction.
Right.
So that's stopped for a while now. But so there are other options right now. They've been pushing their users to lobby their representatives in Congress to kind of address copyright law, but we know how slowly things happen in Congress, and
that works with Uber, right? When they go into a city and break all the rules, and then get their users to push for acceptance, because everyone loves Uber. But Aereo had a very small user base.
It's a really small user base.
So do they have enough heft there to actually enact change, do you think?
You know, I'm not so sure about that. I think there's a lot of people who weren't necessarily Aereo users who are waiting to see what happened with the Supreme Court, who are very interested in the concept and the company, who might still help this push. But at the same time, I don't see lobbying Congress members, any major change to copyright like that would be very, very controversial.
It's one of those things where like Uber has it easy because they like get really popular really quickly and then they say don't restrict this.
Right.
Whereas Aereo has to say like we are restricted, please help us not be. And like no matter how many users, like they're just not at a scale yet where like that user base can do anything really.
Speaking of user bases that are growing, I want to end on a different note.
Okay.
An app this week that we all know and love called Product Hunt picked up $1 million and launched an iOS app.
Yes, they launched their iOS version. So it was a big week for Product Hunt. They're actually part of the YC class. So they were presenting at Y Combinator, and then so they announced $120,000 from Y Combinator, but then they had an additional $880,000 that they announced on Thursday morning. And that was also coincided with the launch of their iOS app, which has been really long awaited by people in the tech community. So
wasn't that $880,000 from a real cluster of like every angel throwing in like $20? I mean, it was like an entire paragraph of names.
Oh,
I mean, I threw in a 5 at like at YC. It was just a jar.
Ethics, sir, you cannot do that.
But I mean, it was just like an open jar, Product Hunt seed round.
Every startup has a guitar case open. People were just throwing.
And it was an impressive list, but I think it shows kind of a lot of who's using Product Hunt, because one of the things Ryan Hoover told me, the founder of Product Hunt, was that he didn't really reach out to these investors himself asking for money.
Right.
These are investors who are already on Product Hunt, using it to look for the next big thing, and they came to him with investments.
So investors are investing in a way to find the next big thing they can invest in.
Basically.
And on that note, we'll see you next week.